Hey. So welcome to this lunchtime seasonal tips workshop. And as the name indicates, this is a really good workshop to do before the seasonal or the festive meals and parties, and all the indulgence is going to start by next week. But it's also the actions I'm going to share are totally applicable any time of the year, every day, in fact. So if, like many of my clients, you suffer from bloating or acid reflux or feeling uncomfortable, maybe, or in pain during, after, or before you eat, you're in for a treat. I'm going to share here what's worked for all my clients over the past nearly 20 years. And what's very different about the information I'm going to share is that it's going to be all about how you eat and how you are when you eat. And I will not mention food restrictions, intolerances, or anything to do with what you eat. Okay, this is actually inspired by what I always get asked. What's the number one thing you always tell your clients that's the most important thing to know? And apart from hydration, the most important thing that I always tell my clients, it's not, the most important thing is not what you eat, it's how you eat and how you are when you're eating. Because as opposed to popular sayings like you are what you eat, you are not what you eat, you are what you digest and absorb. So I hope you brought your lunch with you, and if not, you can always take notes, because as I said, I'm going to give you some tips that you can apply anytime, any time of the year. And I'm not going to use slides today. I thought I'd make it just like a conversation as opposed to just slides and boring. So this is an active opportunity, so you can experience today how you can feel lighter, more content, relaxed, and energized by your lunch and food, rather than feeling full, sluggish, perhaps gassy and bloated and uncomfortable after your lunch. So, Yasmin, I can't see you, but if you've brought your lunch, that's great. And feel free to stay off camera if you want to eat, if you don't feel comfortable eating in front of other people. So, first action, if you're ready, let me know. Are you ready? Are you all ready? Yeah, great. Let's get started. First action, do you have a drink with you? Okay, take quite a bit of your drink because you're not going to drink for another about an hour and a half. The reason for that is it's never a good idea to drink during meals, especially if you feel like your digestion is a bit slow, a bit sluggish, you feel bloated, you feel maybe a bit of acid reflux. And by the way, this goes for festive meals as well, and parties, and anytime you eat out. So always drink just before you eat. Yeah, so take a good gulp, a few gulps, because after you've eaten, it's best to actually wait an hour after you've eaten before you have another drink. Okay, so this is a really important one, especially if you suffer from acid reflux, because if you drink at the same time as eating, you're actually mixing around and diluting all the enzymes and hydrochloric acid inside your stomach, which are there to really break down the food so you can digest quickly. Okay, so that's a really, really important point to get started with. Right, second one, I'm going to show you a little breathing exercise. So Emma has already experienced this and hopefully is practicing this every day. But the breathing exercise I'm going to show you is a really important way to bring your attention and mind and mindfulness to this meal that you're about to have. It only takes about a minute, and it actually helps to switch off the fight or flight or busy mode that we all get. Perhaps you've had a very busy, juggling, pressurized morning, this is the time to eat. This is the time to switch off that busyness, switch off that fight or flight, and to go into the parasympathetic central nervous system, which is the rest and digest mode, which is the best mode for eating and digesting and absorbing your food. So let's do this breathing exercise. All you need to do is stay as you are, and you can put your hands on your belly. We're going to do 5 breaths. And as you are here, you can close your eyes, but if you're in an office or if you're in a restaurant or somewhere, you don't have to close your eyes. So you don't have to close them now, but you're going to take 5 breaths. So to a count of 4, you're going to breathe in through your nose, then hold it a couple of seconds, and then exhale to about a count of 8. So really slow down the exhale. That's great. While you breathe out, and then hold it for a couple of seconds again. Then breathe in again to about 4, so it's much faster. And then exhale to 8. If you can't do it, do 6. Then breathing in to a count of 4. And 8. Exhaling, letting go of any busyness, any thoughts, negative thoughts, feelings, any tension, any stress, let it go. Breathing in. And out. Making sure your shoulders are always down, everything is relaxing and dropping downwards. Last one. Breathing in. And out. Great. How do you feel? Nice and calm now? Much more relaxed than you were? Yeah, great. So this is a really important one because, as I said, you need to be in the right frame of mind, but also your body, your stomach, the enzymes, the HCl, everything in there needs to be starting now. You know, this is an invitation for your body to actually start the digestion process. Now it's ready. Okay, even if you've had a lot of stress before, this is how to switch it off almost instantly. Okay. Next, I'm going to ask you to do something a little bit unusual. But I'd like you to look at your food if you've got food, or if you don't have your food with you, maybe close your eyes and imagine your food in the kitchen or wherever it is in your bag. And just thank yourself, thank the universe, thank God, thank no one in particular, but thank whoever for the bounty and the lovely food you're about to eat. Just say thank you. That's all you need to do. Just thank you. Okay? Next action. Please set a timer for 20 minutes. Okay, if you've got your phone and you can, then set a timer for 20 minutes. This is how long a meal needs to take. So if you're about to eat, once you've set the timer, you can start. Okay, so if you want to eat with us, go ahead. I'm not going to eat because it's difficult for me to talk and eat. But this is a really important thing because it takes about 20 minutes. So feel free to eat if you have your lunch. I know Emma's already started. And this is a really important part of digestion, okay? It takes about 20 minutes for the brain to register that we're full. So if you eat your meal in about 5 minutes, like the average person generally eats between 5 and 7 minutes their meal. What happens then? Very often I get a lot of clients who say to me, after my meal, I often don't feel satisfied. I feel I need something sweet or I need some more. And then I go for seconds and sometimes thirds. And without fail, if I ask people, okay, how long do you take to eat your meal? Without fail, they'll always say, maybe 5, 7 minutes. I know I need to eat slowly. I know, but I can't. Yeah, that's where the mistake is. And when you eat fast, first of all, you never feel full because your brain hasn't had time to pick up on the fact that you've eaten, and you should feel satisfied and full. And secondly, you're not actually absorbing anything through your mouth because, and that's the next action as well, chewing thoroughly your food will increase the surface of each mouthful in your mouth, the surface of the food in your mouth, and then the enzymes inside the saliva will start breaking down that food in your mouth as you chew, as you mix the saliva with your food. So Emma, I know you're eating soup. This goes the same way with soup or anything liquid, especially if it's whole food that's been liquefied, like a smoothie or soup. You do need to chew your smoothies and your soup. Otherwise, you're not absorbing any of that food. You're not breaking it down properly. So chewing thoroughly is number one. This is so important because it will automatically help you to slow down and to eat in that 20 minutes and to increase the awareness while you're eating. Okay? So to help you with slowing down and making sure that you're eating in 20 minutes, you also need to put either your fork or your spoon down between each mouthful. Okay, this is an important one. Or if you're eating a sandwich, just put it down between each bite. Okay, while you do that, count to about 20 or 30 each bite, each chew that you're taking of that food. Okay, again, Emma, that goes with soup as well. So it's not very ladylike to eat soup that way because you really do need to chew the mouthful and to mix it with as much of the saliva in your mouth. Now, if you don't chew thoroughly, if you don't take your time to mix that first, that first bite, what happens is you're missing one stage of the digestive system, the digestive process. Then you're swallowing the food whole inside your stomach. The stomach only has a certain amount of enzymes and hydrochloric acid. And by the way, these diminish as we get older. They diminish during the menopause. They diminish, if we're under stress. So there's not that much for many people in there to further break down the food, which explains why a lot of people get bloating, uncomfortable, they get belching or all of these signs that actually digestion is not happening very well. So when you eat your food whole and it goes down into the stomach whole and not broken down, you're giving even more trouble or more work for your stomach to further try and break down that food so it can go down into the intestines and then to be eliminated properly. So you're missing out a major part of the digestive process. So you might as well, cut a slot into your stomach and then insert the food there, right? It's almost as bad as that. So make sure that you chew every mouthful, put your fork down. Now I'd like you to take a look at your timer if you're eating and check how long you've taken so far to eat. Okay, so if you are eating, you should have already had maybe 5-10 minutes to eat. Yeah, so if you've already almost finished your food, I would invite you to really slow down now or even take a little break. Come back to mindfulness, come back to really, just what you're doing, this action. I'm not asking you to, check your emails or go out and talk to people or anything like that, but really take your time to slow down again and to continue to chew and to stretch that eating for 20 minutes, right? Now, I wanted to share why this is an important process, the slowing down and taking your time, and why stress just doesn't work with digestion. Okay, so I'm going to share a document. That's the only thing I'm going to share with you, no other slide. But this is a really important way, a really graphic way to see why stress doesn't work with digestion. So the sympathetic, if you look at the screen, the sympathetic, the pink side of your nervous system is the fight or flight mode. So you've had a busy morning, you're now sitting at your desk, you're eating your lunch, but you haven't done anything to switch off that fight or flight mode, this is what happens to your digestive organs. First of all, the salivary glands will stop you from producing saliva. And remember when I said you've got to mix around the saliva for the first stage of your digestive process? This is where it happens. But if you're still under stress and you haven't done your breathing or done something to relax before you eat, there's no saliva to break down the food, right? So second stage, the food, because we are adaptable animals and we still like to eat in the most stressful environments and times, we continue to eat and the food goes down into your stomach. Unfortunately, because you're in that stress mode, the stomach stops producing enzymes and HCl, the hydrochloric acid that you need in order to break down that food properly and absorb it as well. So you don't have those. So what happens is the food still goes into that belly because you're eating regardless. What happens then is the food is likely to actually sit there, and sometimes it sits there for days on end before it actually gets broken down, but it doesn't even get broken down if you stay in that stage, in that state of fight or flight, because you're still not producing the enzymes and the HCl that you need to break it down. What happens is the food decomposes rather than gets broken down and digested. While it decomposes, it sits there for a long time, which creates a lot of fermentation. Okay, that fermentation, if you've ever, kept an apple in a jar by mistake, or you've seen, vinegar, how vinegar or pickles are made, fermentation creates a lot of gas, right? So when you feel bloated in your stomach, which is just below the ribs, in the center of your gut, your pit, the pit of your gut, when you feel really bloated there and you feel like belching and you feel like there's a lot going on in there and you can feel it, even moving and burbling away, that's what's happening. Okay, the food is fermenting and decomposing in there and very likely pushing the little acid you've got up towards the esophagus and then bringing up whatever food, because it's not going down. It's not going anywhere. It's just sitting there fermenting. So this is a really important stage, obviously. If you don't digest while you're there, that's not going to go anywhere. The food is not going to go anywhere. And it needs to go down into the intestines. So the intestine, if you look down, yeah, you can see them there in sort of greenish yellow. The state of stress basically stops you from having peristalsis. Peristalsis is the movement of the walls of the digestive system and the intestines and the colon. When those walls move, which they need to move, yeah, basically it takes the food and the particles of pre-digested foods around the intestine. If you look at the small intestine in the middle, it's all the wriggly little worms there. It's actually one long tube that's about the size of 2 football pitches if you just extended it outside your body. So you can imagine how that tube is really wound around and, in a bit of a mess. So if the walls of that intestine don't move, all the food and the particles of food in there are just not moving anywhere. When the intestine walls move, they also move the villi, which are little hairs inside the digestive wall, which absorb all the nutrients from your food. When it doesn't move, there's none of that happening, so you're not absorbing anything. Okay? Then the colon also needs movement in order to then, because the colon, if you see, it goes from here upwards to the side and then downwards. So it's quite a long way for the food and the particles of food to travel. And if there's no movement in there, it's going to get stuck, right? So if you have food stuck at the beginning of this colon, you're likely to get constipated because there's no movement to push the stools out. Sorry, I'm talking about this while you're having lunch. So there's no movement to actually force the food and the particles of um, anything that you need to excrete as well, and the waste. Nothing is pushing it out, right? Because you're not having any peristalsis because you're in the stress mode. Now, if you have food or particles or waste that's already in here at the top of your colon, what's likely to happen is you might have instant diarrhea. Okay, so a lot of people I know especially people who suffer from a lot of stress, when they have a bout of stress or anxiety, they also suffer from constant or chronic diarrhea. Unfortunately, this is because the waste that's been here, there's no movement to hold back the waste and to make it be eliminated in a normal way. So everything gets flushed out very quickly. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the lack of movement in there stops you from absorbing the nutrients. It stops all the waste and particles of food to be absorbed and also the waste to be carried outwards where it needs to go. Okay, so you'll either get constipation or instant diarrhea. Now, if you look at the parasympathetic, which is the relaxed mode, this is where you're completely relaxed. And by the way, that those 5 breaths you took is enough to put you into that blue side. Everything starts again. The saliva is stimulated, the production of saliva is stimulated, the stomach starts having the digestive enzymes and the acid that it needs to further digest. The peristalsis, the movement of the walls, happen again, they're stimulated, so everything starts moving again in the right way. Okay. Unfortunately, we very often ignore all of these and we ignore the signs as well of stress because we're chronically under usually, chronic low levels of stress. That's kind of the norm these days. But your body is still not working properly when that chronic low level stress is present. So when people come to me and say, oh, I don't suffer from stress. And I always say, well, why did you come to me? Well, my digestion is not working well. I have hormonal imbalances. I have this happening and low energy and all. And I always say, well, I'm sorry, but you do suffer from stress? And then, oh, really? And then when I help them to reassess their life and what's going on in their lives, they're like, yeah, I mean, now you say it, I do have, I am going through a divorce and I am going through this and this is happening. And yeah, I feel really rushed off my feet all the time. But we're so adaptable. We're beautiful animals. We adapt to our environment, but stress is actually doing a lot of damage while we think we're adapting really well. Okay, so recognizing the stress, especially before we eat, is so important to how much of the good food you're going to eat is going to be absorbed and digested and how well you're going to feel afterwards. Okay, because when your digestive system doesn't work well and you're still forcing it to eat, that takes up so much of your energy because the digestive system actually takes up the most energy of your entire body. Not the brain, not anything else. It's the digestive system. Okay, so if you think of it in terms of how we've evolved as human beings, as animals, when you're faced with a tiger or a dinosaur, you're not going to want to eat your tuna sandwich. Yeah, you're going to want to run or fight. Yeah, so in terms of our bodies are doing exactly the same. Our brain is thinking, okay, this person is not breathing properly. The level of oxygen in her blood is lower because she's holding her breath or not breathing enough. That means there must be a threat in the room. So we're not going to let her digest her food because that's a waste of her energy. We're going to put all the energy and the nutrients and the blood into the brain, the arms, and the legs so she can fight and fly. Not in the digestive system. Yeah. That's definitely the second part of the body that suffers when we're under stress is also the reproductive system. And that's where women have a lot of reproductive problems with hormones, with all of that. Because again, when there's a tiger or a dinosaur in the room, you're not going to want to mate and reproduce the race, right? So you're going to want to, again, fight or fly. So these are instinctive, things that happen, processes that happen in the body without you even noticing or knowing what's going on. Okay? So this is why, breathing before you eat, taking your time to slow down, because if you're eating fast, you're also holding your breath, you're not breathing while you're eating. So that's going to be a major problem with, again, putting you back into the fight or flight mode. And taking your time to chew and to mix all these enzymes and slow down the eating is gonna put you in the parasympathetic mode, which is where you can rest and digest. Okay, so this is really, really important now at any time of the year, but it's also even more important when you're about to eat festive food, rich foods, when you mix lots of rich different types of foods as well that you don't normally have. So these actions will actually help you to be much more mindful of what you put on your plate, yeah, and how much you eat, because if you take time to eat in 20 minutes also, you're much more aware of how full you are. And this is another important part. The Japanese have a saying, which is called hara hachi bu. Sorry for the accent, but it basically means don't eat over 80% of your capacity. Never eat over 80% of your capacity. If you eat over that, you're going to feel really sluggish. Your digestion is going to slow down and it's going to start hurting. You're going to feel really overfull. You might, if you do that all the time, if you eat like a lot at every meal, you're going to need to undo your belt, and the more you eat and the faster you eat, the slower your metabolism. Okay, I'm going to repeat that. The more you eat and the faster you eat, the slower your metabolism. Your metabolism is how quickly your body burns calories. That's all going to slow down. So it's the opposite of your action. If you're fast, metabolic rate goes down. If you eat fast, your digestion slows down as well. So if you want to digest really effectively, efficiently, and properly, you need to slow down. Otherwise, your digestion is going to slow down and you're going to feel really rubbish. So those are the keys to not having that slump after lunch. Many people I know or who come to me are like, I feel really sluggish after I've eaten food. I don't feel energized. I feel bleh. Or they feel okay because they're busy, they're doing things, but then 2 hours later they have that slump of energy and then they have to drink their coffee or their tea and their cake to pick themselves up with the sugar, right? So that's why, because they haven't taken time, they've not slowed down, and they haven't chewed and done all of these actions that I've just explained. Okay, so we've reached about 20 minutes of eating, haven't we? Have your timers gone off? Yeah. Great. And Emma, how did you find the slowing down? Did you manage to do 20 minutes on your
No, I
screen?
stopped mine when I finished and I still had 5 minutes to go. So even slowing down mindfully, it
Yeah.
just felt so odd with soup. I've never done that with soup before, but so even that I ate too fast. I would have ate that in 5 minutes probably normally, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's, and I'd be curious to see. So how do you feel having slowed down at least to 15 minutes?
I do feel a bit more comfortable actually. I feel more satisfied, if you like. I feel,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, usually I'm just rushing all the time. I do need to slow down a bit, but yeah, it feels more relaxed, more
great,
enjoyable, if you like, I think.
great. And did you enjoy, because the whole act of slowing down is also to increase the enjoyment of the food,
Mm.
because, again, when people say to me, oh, I eat really good food and all, but I just don't feel satisfied. It's just, I'm bored with it or whatever. And I'm like, but, you're eating really quickly. What I recommend when you're eating for 20 minutes is to actually be mindful of the crunch, the smells, the color, make your plate, make it a party every day. When you make your plate, present it nicely so it actually appeals and it's really good for all your senses, not just for your digestion and the nutrients and all of that. Yeah. But if you're preparing your food like that beautifully and you've put so much time and effort and money into making it, organic and whatever, bionic food, but then you eat it standing up at the counter while you're on the phone to your boss or whatever, you might as well eat burgers and chips. Seriously. It will give you the same kind of zero nutrients that burgers and chips will give you, at least from, certain golden arches or places like that, right? So honor the food, honor your body, honor the act of eating because we are made. I mean, this is kind of basic stuff when you think about it. We are all made from food. Every cell of our body, the trillions and trillions of cells of our body are made from the food we've eaten in the past. The food and the drink, obviously. Yeah. So whatever you put in, you're going to get out. Yeah. But it's also how you put it in, how you eat it, how you really enjoy. And this is not, I get people who say, but I'm not a foodie, I don't want to have to think too much about food. This isn't being a foodie. I'm not a foodie either. I love food, but I don't go out of my way to get a special ingredient from whatever or pay £200 for a truffle or any of that. I'm not interested. Yeah. I want food to nourish me, to give me fuel, to give me energy, and I want to enjoy it while I'm eating it as well. So you do get what you put in. You really do. Now you've finished eating. So imagine you finished eating. Um, Please do not drink any drinks for another hour after food again. Because if you've been, slowing down and you've been eating properly, it's going to take about an hour to really go to the next stage of your digestion, where you're able to actually drink and, have a bit of liquid in there, and it's not going to affect your digestion further. Another thing that's important, many people tell me, oh, I forget to do the breathing exercise before I eat all the time. If you forget, but then you remember, let's say, halfway through your meal, or even an hour after you've eaten, or 2 hours after you've eaten, do it. Because your body is still in the process of digestion anyway. Yeah, so anytime you remember it, just do it. Yeah, just really mindfully do those 5 breaths. They're very simple. The idea is really to increase the capacity of the oxygen by breathing into your belly and out from your belly, out through the mouth. Yeah. So when you bring in the oxygen into your belly, you're also relaxing the muscles there and you're increasing the volume of your digestive system and your trunk in your belly to take in more oxygen. And the oxygen is the one that's going to do all its magic, yeah, of helping you to digest, right? So a few more tips, if you're okay to go on for just a few more minutes, a few more tips for the festive meals and parties and things like that. So before, let's say you're eating out or you've been invited to a party or somewhere where you're not sure what the food is going to be. What I always say is never, ever go there starving. Okay, so the big mistake a lot of people make is, oh, I'm invited for lunch or dinner. I'm not going to eat all day because, otherwise that's too much food, right? In a day. Uh-uh. Mistake. Because if you don't eat throughout the day and then go to your meal where you don't know what food is going to be there, you're going to be starving and then you're going to be eating everything and anything that's, on offer. You're not going to have any control anymore. Your blood sugar is going to be so low. Your brain is only going to be interested in one thing, is to fill up very quickly. You're not going to take time. You're not going to slow down. You're going to be, really going for it. And that's going to create all these problems that I've mentioned before. Yeah. So when you get to a place where let's say it's a restaurant or whatever, make sure you're, I would say, almost 50% full. Okay, so either eat a small meal at home, let's say an hour before, even 2 hours before, with some protein in there to keep you, really a little bit fuller than normal. And it doesn't have to be a full meal, it could be a snack. But just to make sure your blood sugar is steady and you're not starving when you get to that party or that meal. Same for Christmas. If you're having Christmas meal, say at 3 in the afternoon or 2 in the afternoon, make sure you have a good breakfast. It doesn't mean you're not going to eat whatever is on offer. It's the opposite. You're going to eat what's on offer, but you might be able to then take your time and decide, actually, I'm going to have a little bit of everything. So I mentioned that this is not about restrictions and not eating sugar and not eating this and not eating that. It's the opposite of that. If you take your time, you're mindful, you slow down your eating, you do it mindfully, you're enjoying the company, you take in the atmosphere, the place, the decorations, the feeling of joy in your heart, you're going to be feeling so much more satisfied than if you just focus on filling up at all costs within 5 minutes and then boom, the moment is gone. Yeah. So this is really about doing this for the festive season, but also every day. Yeah. If you go out and you've been invited to some friend's place and you don't want to be fussy, you don't want to say, oh, I don't need this, I don't need that. And you're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to eat what's on offer. This is the way to do it. Just relax about it, relax, even if, there is dairy or gluten and you're not used to eating dairy or gluten or whatever. Because if you don't relax about it, remember that graph I showed you, the diagram I showed you, that's what's going to happen. Because if you go to a place and, there's lasagna and you don't eat gluten or dairy, for example, and that's all that's on offer, and you feel, oh my goodness, that's poison. In your head, you're thinking that's poison for my body, right? I can't eat that. What's your brain going to think? Oh, she's about to eat poison, right? We'd better switch off digestion. We don't want that in her body. Let's switch everything off. Yeah. If she's going to eat it, let's make sure that it doesn't enter our system, right? And everything shuts down because you're in that stress mode all of a sudden. Yeah. So relax, just bless the food that's been made and prepared for you with love and care and everything. And just breathe, do your breathing and do the steps that I've mentioned. Eat slowly. You don't have to eat the whole pan of lasagna, just eat a small part, a small bit. Breathe while you're eating it. Continue to bless the food and to think, wow, this is the most amazing lasagna I've ever had. And just keep going very slowly until you're 80% full, and that's it. Then you leave the rest. And you're like, this is great. Thank you. And I really enjoyed it. Many people who come to me also say, how come, I have really bad digestion when I'm at home? And then I go on holiday and I eat bread and I eat camembert and I eat baguettes and wine and everything on top. And I feel fine. Why do you think that is? Because everyone is more relaxed when they're on holiday, right? They're like, oh, to hell with the restrictions. I'm just going to go for it. And that's what happens. It's not the food that's different. It's your mind that's completely different. Because the mind is the one that decides what's going to happen inside. All these processes, whether they're on or off. So you decide when you go for those Christmas meals, parties, eating out or anything, you decide, okay, I'm just going to go for it, but not in a crazy way. I'm just going to be mindfully thoroughly enjoying what is on offer. Okay, does that make sense? Yeah, great. So these are some of the tips that I share in the group that we started in November. Emma is actually part of that group that we started in November, the Rebalance Circle. It's only one small part, but it's an important part. And I've just, released it for the group as well to practice before the festivities and all. But again, this is really about every day. It's not at all about just festive meals or any of those. Yeah, any of those special occasions. It's for every occasion that you're eating, when you're eating. Yeah. Any questions? Any questions or comments? Margaret, I know we've had this conversation about how every cell of our body is made of the food we eat, and how can we expect our bodies to work well when we put in the wrong fuel, we put in the wrong ingredients in there, or we do it not in a mindful way, we do it in a sort of, casual, whatever. This is not important way. Yeah. And Margaret is also a dietitian and, a good example of how you can live healthily for a very long time. If you take care of yourself, then this is the way to go. So if you have any other questions about the festivities coming up or what some people also mentioned, but what about drinking alcohol? It's the same with alcohol. Okay, if you speed up the rate that you're drinking and you're not mindful, but if you decide, what, I'm gonna have one drink, for example, and I'm thoroughly going to enjoy it. I'm just going to eat it with the right foods. I'm going to drink it with the right things. Obviously, it goes against what I said, don't drink while you're eating. But when it's an occasion like that and you really want that glass of wine or whatever, just be mindful. If you really suffer from gut problems like acid reflux, I would always say, have your drink if you want a drink of alcohol, if you have to, because alcohol and acid reflux actually do not mix together. But if you really, really want, maybe a glass of champagne or bubbly before your meal, have it before your meal. Yeah, don't eat at the same time. And then during the meal, don't drink anything. After your meal, again, if you want something alcoholic or whatever, just keep it for much later after the meal if you have to have alcohol. Yeah. But I know a lot of people will say, but I like a glass of wine with my meal. So if you do, take very little sips at a time and think, okay, I'm going again to enjoy this. I'm going to thoroughly, appreciate the taste of it and all. And when you don't appreciate it anymore, stop. Yeah, just if you think actually that's really, it tastes acidic, or I really don't like the taste of this wine, just stop. Yeah, I mean, it's a different topic altogether, the whole alcohol thing. But, if you put it in this context of enjoyment and mindfulness, it will work. It will blend in properly with the rest of your meal. Okay, great. So I'm going to